Hello everyone, today on the 1 Year Life Transformation Challenge I'm going to show you 3 ways to control your emotional state.
Hola Brad, I'm Maria from Caracas. I have had some huge setbacks recently. I ended a bad relationship, lost my job, and have had to move out of my hometown. I'm really stressed. What can I do to get back on track?
Hello everyone, controlling your emotional state is incredibly important in building relationships, careers, and at all levels of success in life. So as always, I'm going to begin with a quote, and that quote is, "When dealing with people, remember you're dealing with creatures of emotion, not creatures of logic." Dale Carnegie. I'll read that one more time. "When dealing with people, remember you're dealing with creatures of emotion rather than logic." Dale Carnegie, who wrote the book How to Win Friends and Influence People, which is in the top 5 selling books of all time, up there with the Quran and the Bible, was a gentleman who knew that reaching people emotionally was key. But in order to reach people emotionally, you must control your own emotional state. Because as the old Chinese proverb says, 2 people fighting from a distance both look wrong. Because when you lose control of your emotions, the baser instincts, the animal instincts come out and you don't always get the resolution you want. We all know a situation where we lost our cool and had ramification years and years later, whether it's with family members, friends or loved ones, partners or even business colleagues. So from my personal perspective, getting control of my emotional state was probably one of the most important things I've ever done. I believe in the past I'd burnt relationships and escalated issues that didn't need to be escalated simply because I had lost control of my emotions. But about probably 6 or 7 years ago, as I started working on my personal development and through things like Tony Robbins and NLP, I started to understand that I could control my state. And if I could control my state, then ultimately I could control the way I behaved. And people would often comment on situations where everyone else was losing it, but I was able to remain calm and centered and find a solution. It wasn't that I was smarter than anyone, it was that I was able to keep my faculties because I wasn't losing emotional control. So, in saying that, before I learned how to become emotionally mature, I also believe I probably created problems that were unnecessary as well. So, I think a lot of people are at 2 stages in their life. One, where they haven't controlled their emotions, where they're constantly acting out and fighting out and creating issues. But then at some stage, whether it's 80 or 18, they become in control of their emotions and they see that their awareness is in control, not the way they feel. So how do you control it? Well, there's 3 specific ways, and I use these techniques myself to be able to become a controlled individual. And I can tell you, once you get these 3 things straight, life becomes much easier. You're not in a panic, you don't get angry, driving a car doesn't become a problem. Everyday things in life become joyous, and you can see the joy behind them rather than reacting in a negative way. So the first one is your physiology. Now, I've got a little experiment that we can all do right now while we're watching it. I want you, and you're going to do it, I know you will because I trust you. I want you to smile, and I want you to get the biggest smile you can. I want you to put your shoulders back. I want you to take a deep breath, and I want you to smile and think about a happy thought. Think about your favourite sport, or think about the last time you laughed, the last comedy, or think about your best friend or your partner, and just smile and continue to smile. So you're smiling, I can see the big cheesy smile, that's great. Right, so you're doing that, chest back, standing up straight. Now I want you to feel depressed. Now feel depressed, feel depressed. I need you to feel depressed, do it for me. Okay, so what happened? Well, what would have happened, I'm assuming, if you're anything like me, you would have dropped the smile, your shoulders would have come forward, you probably would have bent over a little bit, and if you're doing that right now, you'll be laughing to yourself, because ultimately what you've done is you've been able to show that you must have your physiology in a certain way to feel a certain way. So you are acting out the emotion. So in the example that you can't feel depressed while smiling and your shoulders back, shows that by controlling your physiology, you can control your state. It's impossible to be depressed while smiling and your shoulders back, because your physiology is telling your brain, hey, I don't want to do it, and your brain will relent. So understanding the way you stand, the way you breathe, and practicing yoga and meditation is key to this, will really help you understand and control your emotional state and well-being. Now, the second way after physiology, once you've got your back right, and I really believe in weight training and yoga and stretching in order to get your physiology right all day, because you want to be on autopilot. You don't want to be thinking, am I standing straight? Am I, am I upright? Are my legs good? You just want it to happen. And resistance training is very important to that. And I've had some videos on resistance training during this 1 year life transformation challenge. The second way to control your emotional state is through language. Now, this is a classic, and quite often my friends will comment on this when they'll say, oh, it was an absolute disaster today. I'll quite often say, was it a disaster or was it a difficult day? And they'll go, oh, okay, it wasn't a disaster, it was just a difficult day. I go, was it something you handled? And they go, yeah, it's something I handled. I go, so it was a day that you really achieved? And they go, yeah, it was a day I really achieved. And all of a sudden you see someone who's about to tell me a story of the worst day ever, and they were going to add, probably embellish it a little bit to prove to me it was a bad day, to someone who's now going to tell me a story of how they overcame a challenge. Language is very important. Before you go to tell someone that something terrible happened or something awful happened, think about the words leaving your mouth. Think strategically, because the minute you say something's terrible, you're going to have to back that up, and your brain's going to find a way to back that up. And the more you talk about it, the more your physiology changes, and the more you feel terrible. Why do you want to tell a story about a terrible day when it's just going to make you feel terrible? Reframe the conversation with your language. I've got a video on language and how to change your language on autopilot, which is really important to controlling your emotional state. If I came up to you and said, I've got to tell you something absolutely awful, devastating has happened to you, you can imagine your state just going, well, what are they going to say? This is terrible. Your heart would start beating, anxiety would start to increase. Well, you've got a parking fine. And you go, oh, that's not that bad. Well, the problem is you've already gone through the cycle of the stress being released, the cortisol and adrenaline from your brain is being released, which is affecting and damaging your organs. You can't go back in time and go, oh, he's just going to tell me about a parking ticket. You really need to appreciate your language. And most importantly, appreciate the language of the people around you. If the people around you are using language that doesn't serve you, ultimately you'll need to help them, maybe show them this video. But ultimately you'll need to get out of their lives, and they'll need to get out of your lives, because you don't need it. You don't need big dramatic plays coming into your life all the time. My life is a drama-free zone. If someone was to bring drama into my life, I'll politely explain to them that my life is drama-free and let's talk about something else. But if they want to progress and create drama, then ultimately, as a drama-free zone, I'll allow them to go their way and I'll go my way. Because it's really important to me that I live the life of my dreams. And I can't do that with people who are creating drama. Language creates drama. Use the right language. Now, the third technique on creating great emotional control is focus. Now, if I was to take a video camera, or show you a video, and the video was of two people sitting in the corner of a room, and they were staring at each other, and they were having a conversation, couldn't quite hear the words, the video didn't really have any audio, and one of the people were crying, and the two people eventually left the video, and I said, what is that video about? You would say to me, well, that video is an awful video, it's about two people obviously either breaking up or getting into a fight. But if I was to then zoom out on the camera and show you that was a video of 1,000 people at a party where 998 of them are having a fantastic time and dancing, and there's kids and everything's great, and those two individuals were just off in the corner because they needed to talk, and I asked you what that video was about, you would say it was about this great party that happened, and your focus would change immediately. So the lens of your camera, which is what you focus on, will create the physiology and your emotional state. So ultimately what you choose to focus on is the story that will control your emotional state. So choosing to look at things as challenges rather than difficulties, looking at things as opportunities and not crises, isn't just wishful thinking. It will change the way your brain reacts, and your neurons will fire differently, you'll release different chemicals, and you'll be a different person. Now that is at the key of emotional well-being. It's not easy to control your emotional state when you have cortisol, adrenaline, and neural activity that's making you feel anxious. Now try and tell someone who's panicking not to panic. It doesn't work, it's too late. Their body is tripped over into panic mode, fight or flight response. Now ultimately, if you don't get there by controlling the way you stand, your physiology, controlling the language you use, and controlling your focus, you'll be able to create a physiology on autopilot. That's incredibly important, because if you get your emotional control right, you can live the life of your dreams. So if you'd like to learn more about this, I'll put some articles on my website. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and on my website so you don't miss any of these videos each day. But other than that, I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Goodbye.